Hey, welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to create your own custom drawing border in Autodesk Inventor. This is actually a full lesson taken straight from my Inventor course, which is now available on Skillshare and Udemy. The course is designed to take you from basics to more advanced skills, using real projects that you can follow along with. And this is one of those more hands-on lessons. We'll go step by step through the process of making your own custom border that you can use in your own technical drawings. You'll learn how to create a clean, professional template for your designs. If you find this at all useful and want to learn more, there's a link in the description where you can check out the full course. I also believe that the Skillshare link gives you access for free for 1 month. Anyways, let's get into it. So to begin making our own border, we need to get rid of this one. To do that, come over to the model tree and right click and delete the drawing border. So that's this default one, right click and delete, and that's gone. And your text in the bottom right, so that as well. If you can't find these, you might have to expand the sheet one at the top here, and then your drawing border and title block should be able to be found from there. So now we get to put our newly learned 2D sketch commands to use while designing our drawing border. This should help solidify the knowledge in your memory while further gaining experience using each of the 2D sketch tools. So before you start drawing in your border, define the page limits with a rectangle. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to start our sketch. Now it's just going to immediately work because there's no 3D models to select or planes that we need to select. There is only one place we can start a sketch, and that is right here. So start your sketch, and we're going to get a rectangle, and we're just going to define the edges of our border. And you'll see that the corners actually do snap, so we can snap to opposite corners here. It does snap easier when you zoom in, although it doesn't appear to be snapping on this corner until I've zoomed in a lot. So make sure you zoom in a lot so that you can get that snap. Now that we have a rectangle along the border, we can start. So this border allows us to sketch geometry off of the page extents as if it were a line, meaning we can snap lines to the edge of our page. And also we can find center points on our page too, and that's the screen dot here. So we're going to interact with this using the offset tool. Press the O hotkey or select the offset tool and interact with the rectangular border you have just drawn. Define your drawing border by clicking or typing in a value. When doing this, it's important to keep in mind that the inner space here is where your model views and dimensions are going to be. So allowing lots of room is smart. So here I'd recommend only doing a small border as it leaves us a lot of working space. I'm going to use 20 mil, and now I'm going to delete that dimension. Don't worry about dimensions appearing. After using tools like offset, they'll disappear once you're done designing our border. Use the dimension tool to select the height of our bordering rectangle and create a driven dimension. So here we're just going to click that, and we're going to right click it and make it into a driven dimension. Now this dimension is visible to us, so we can use it in formulas so that we can equally space our drawing zones. But it's not actually driving anything and can be modified. So we're going to sketch multiple lines of which we will use to break up each zone in our drawing. Keep these small but big enough to identify when you need to. So I'm going to just cut it down into 4 zones here, which means I'll need 3 lines. I'm going to draw these at 15 mil. Feel free to do it however big that you like. And then I'm going to use the copy tool to just copy and paste this down a little bit, save me drawing it over and over again. So 3 lines, they're not equally spaced right now, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 areas here along our left hand side. I am also going to use this locking constraint to select our outer border. I'm just going to do that for all the edges here. And this is so that it just stops running away from us. Now when I drag it, it should stay in place. So now the lines are in, we need to equally space them along the height of our drawing. To do this, we'll write a formula that will do the maths for us. So I'm going to put in my dimensions first, but to begin with I'm going to press D to get my dimension tool. I'm just going to pull these out to the side and line them up nicely so they're easy to read. And now that all our dimensions are in here, we can start using these to equally space them. So we know that each of these areas needs to be 1/4 of our driven dimension or our overall page space on the right hand side here. So if I click into this dimension and then use this dimension as our starting point and then use divided by 4, you'll see that it is now at that dimension divided by 4. Now instead of doing this over and over again, I'm just going to click on this one because that rule is already in there, and then I'm just going to do that for all of them. And this is a driven dimension. so it's already the correct length anyway. So that's them equally spaced. So now that our vertical side has been done, we're going to move on to our horizontal side, and I'm just going to create 4 zones there again, using exactly the same technique. 2, 3. 3 lines, 4 sections. And this last length here will always be a driven dimension, as it will already be fully constrained just based off these 3 here. But we're going to put it in as a driven dimension just so we can see the distance here and ensure that it is equal to the rest of our zones. And as you can see, they're all equal now. After doing this, you're going to have a messy dims everywhere. So take a moment to tidy them up and move them off the paper, similar to how I've done so here. Now you can carry on doing the same process for the remaining edges, or you can make a massive time save using the mirror tool to automatically place the rest. To do this, you're going to want to create a center line down the center of the page. This is also going to want to be done from left to right as well as up to down. Make sure that the line is in the dead center and completely straight, as this will affect how the mirrored geometry turns out. The green node on your line indicates the centers of the lines. So if you're creating a line from the center to the center, you know that it is completely straight. So now your lines are in place, select the mirror command at the top and press on all of the lines on one edge, or highlight them for a little bit faster. After that, we're going to then select our mirror line from the menu, and that is going to be in our center. Right click and OK, and now you'll see on our right hand side we have got the mirror image of the left, which is a lot more quicker than just drawing them in like we did before. And as you'll see there, I've just done the same with the top and bottom side too. Much faster using the mirror tool. Ensure that you learn that and incorporate it into your workflow. So once you're done creating your border lines, we can delete these mirror lines, and feel free to number each zone. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to use the text command, and we're just going to click, and then I'm going to do 1, but the 1 is too small. So we're going to open it up, highlight our number and change the size. I'm going to do it to 10 mil. Now that's a bit more of a readable size. So now I'm just going to copy that over, Control C, Control V, and you'll see that another one has been created right next to it, and I'm moving it over to our next zone. And you'll see that there is a dotted line that is showing that our 2 text boxes are actually aligned, which is obviously exactly what we want. Now I'm going to change this to 2 and then copy and paste again. Select the 2 that has spawned a little higher and then move it along and make it 3. Don't worry if it's not completely in the center at the moment, as we're going to add some dimensions afterwards that should help center it up and ensure that everything's looking nice. Also, just because there are dotted lines doesn't mean that it is aligning with the text box. It could be aligning with, say, lines or other geometry, so ensure that it is actually lining up to what you want before you let go, and leave it there. Just a quick double check that's worth doing. So now we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4. I'm going to do the same thing along the left and right hand side, but this time I'm going to do A, B, C and D, and this is so that I can refer to certain zones as A1 or B4. Otherwise, with just numbers, it wouldn't be as easy to understand. So A, I'm going to make that a capital A, and I'm going to copy this down using the copy tool, which is a bit quicker but nowhere near as precise. And I'm just going to change the numbers, letters. Right, so now we want to centralize these. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm actually just going to draw a line, and then we should have a green center node appear, and I'm just going to eye it really. I'm going to make sure that this green node here is on that line, and that way I know that it is central. Now I know that that one's central. I'm just going to draw a straight line down and move these over onto the line, and you see that I'm actually clicking on the dot, which is actually like the placement point of this text box, and moving it over. Now when I try to move the text, the line moves with it, which isn't what we want. So now I know these are all aligned vertically. This one is aligned centrally. I'm just going to do the same thing as I did before and align these. You may find it easier to lock this line, as then we can't actually move it side to side, and it will make it a little bit easier. Now, for the sake of the tutorial, I'm not going to ensure that these are totally perfectly center, whereas I recommend that you do that for yourself, as if you plan to use this drawing border for the rest of your drawing career, then I'd imagine that you'd like it to be at least correct, or, you know, as close to perfect as it can be. So now that one's in a place that I like, I'm going to draw a line from it to the right at a straight edge. You'll see the two lines that are appearing over my degrees input showing that it is a straight edge. When I move my mouse, you'll see they disappear and they're back again because it's completely straight. I'm going to lock this so that it cannot move, and I'm going to put in my lines here so that I can find the center points between each of these zones. Now there, I'm going to put my lines here, and you'll see that 2 is off center, the 3 is pretty close, and the 4 is way off center also. So now that all our lines are in place, I'm just going to firstly drag the place point onto our locked line and move over the 2 so that it is somewhat central, and then delete my guide. 1's pretty central, deleting the guide. 3's almost central, just gonna firstly put the place point on the locked line and then move over. That's close enough for me, delete that, and same again over here. Now when you're done with that, make sure to delete that locked line, and now we have some nicely spaced zone titles. So the mirror tool doesn't work for the text boxes, so if you actually want to title the rest of these zone edges, then feel free, but for the sake of the tutorial I'm going to skip this for now, but I do recommend that you do this. So now the border is in, the next detail to focus on are the different boxes you find on these drawings, such as the revisions table to show what revision the drawing is and the changes made in the revision, and who made the revision on that day. You can add this revision table anywhere you feel fits on the drawing border, but just as you know, this is typically found in the top right corner or along the bottom in conjunction with the other drawing details that we'll get onto pretty soon. So I'll be placing mine in the top right corner just by using a rectangle and then dimensioning it to size. Always keep in mind that you need room to have your drawing and annotations in it, so don't make anything too big. So now my revision box is a reasonable size. I'm going to separate the box into 4 different areas once again. Each area here is for the revision letter that it is, the date of the drawing change, the initials of the person who made the change, and the description box in order to make note of the changes that were made within this revision. Some companies also use a change number box too, so if that's you, you're going to need to add another box also. So same technique as I used before, and I use a lot because it is such a powerful technique. So I'm just going to dimension here, and then I'm going to ensure that they're all even, the same way as I did before. Divided by 4, and then these are going to be driven from this one. Easy. And now we have a revision box. So press T or the text command in order for us to add headers into each box. So I've put down one of my headers, and I'm going to use the copy tool in order to ensure that the headers are in a consistent position across all of the boxes. So what I've done is I've selected the text box, I'm going to press continue, and I'm going to click a common base point, and this is going to be the top left of each of our squares. So you'll see that has fell in exactly the same position because I'm using a consistent technique. So we've got the revision box, which is where we'll put our letter in. We're going to have the date box, which will simply be the date of the day of the change. Then we're going to have our notes box, and then we're going to have our description box, and lastly we're going to have our initials box, and this is just so that we can tell who made the changes. If your font appears too big, unlike what I've got here, then you may want to double click into the text editor and change the size of it to allow room for the data that needs to be inputted. So now that our revision table is complete, we can move on to the boxes that occupy the bottom line of our drawing down here. In these boxes we have info such as drawing numbers and standard machining tolerances. I recommend creating a layout similar to mine here, and I'll just open one up for you. I recommend creating one similar to mine here, and after you've inputted all of your headers, changing the box sizes to better fit the info and leave room for these details to be added in the future. Ensure your lines are aligned to keep your drawing border from looking scruffy and unprofessional. As you can see, this line here aligns with that one. The title here is bigger and not aligned, as it is the main part of the title block used to identify the drawing. So you don't have to do it in exactly the same way as you see here, but a total of around about 10 boxes should be added here, as this is the amount needed to put in all of these different titles, such as approved by date, drawn by scale, drawing number, title, revisions, and this machining tolerances note. I'm just going to close that. I'm going to start drawing in my title block now, and I'm actually going to open up that PDF and just have it open in my other screen for reference. So I'm going to start creating this border. I would like the overall length of this border to be no more than half the length of my page, which at this point is just here, and I'm going to make sure that it is no bigger than 100mm tall. That's a good size border in my opinion. And now I'm just going to use the rectangle to break this down into smaller boxes. I'm just going to select nice round numbers. This rectangle is 100 by 50, and just going to rinse and repeat and create something somewhat similar to what it is that I showed you before. And if you're following along at home, I recommend that you copy something similar to this, as this is what I have been using basically throughout all of my career and has never done me any wrong. Now I'm moving on to my title block here, like I showed you before, and this just doesn't look like a big enough space for the title block. So rather than start it again, I'm just going to take this overall length and I'm going to up it to 500. Then I'm going to take this rectangle and bring it back down to 100. Now our title block is looking a little bit of a more useful size to us. And then I'm going to make sure to put in this little top box as well. And that's quite important, and I'll show you about that later. So now that we have our 10 boxes in, we need to start labeling them. The first box is going to be the approved by box, and once again we're just going to select our text tool at the top, or by using the hotkey T. I'm going to click in the top left and I'm going to type in approved by. Now I'm going to move this somewhere appropriate. I'm going to ensure that the text is big enough. I'm going to set mine to 5mm, still a little bit too small, so I'm going to go back in there. I'm just going to double it, go 10mm, that's far too big, so we'll go for 7.5, still a little bit too big, and I'm going to go and settle for 6.5 maybe. Yeah, that looks like a good size, so I'll stick with that. Also, it's a good practice to ensure that all of the letters are in uppercase, so turn on your caps lock for now. And now we have a text box in, we can use the copy tool to keep a consistent position for these headers, because the last thing we want is a header that's here and one that's clipping through there and one that's not quite, one's right in the center. What we want is a nice uniform, tidy looking drawing. Since this is an engineering drawing border, everything needs to appear professional. So obviously they're not all going to be approved by. I'm going to turn this one below into date, colon. This one here will be our machining tolerances. This typically, as I'll show you on this PDF, is your specified tolerances for the factory that you're working in. So for now you could just copy mine. This would be a pretty standard machining tolerance for a factory, but if you find that you're working somewhere and you want to be completely sure, then ask and find out. And here you go. So I don't actually need machining tolerances at the top here, I'm just gonna put that in and make sure it all fits, just like that. So after we've done that one, we can move on to the drawn by and ensure that everything is in full caps. Below that we're going to go to scale, colon. This is our title box as we discussed earlier, and underneath that is our drawing number, and I promise we're nearly done here. And this is our revision box, which we're just going to call Rev because we don't have much space. And this will just be our revision letter, we'll tie in with our revision boxes at the top here. And I'm actually going to change the size of these as well, because now that I'm looking at it from afar, they're kind of hard to read. So I'm going to set all these to 5mm, and that seems to be a reasonable size. Brilliant. Now we're starting to get somewhere. So all our boxes are filled here. The next box is very important though, and that's this one on top. This is known as the projection sketch symbols, which is meant to explain how your drawing is typically displayed in relation to each of the drawing projections. once again pulling up my standard drawing border. This is what I'm talking about, and with the target on the right hand side rather than this parallelogram and the box on the left, so vice versa, this is meant to indicate a first angle projection. And this means that your top view should be located under your front view. As you can see, this top view is above it, so obviously the opposite to what I just said. When the target is on the left and the box is on the right, such as you can see here, this is known as third angle projection and is a lot simpler to understand, hence why I use it. Your right hand side view will be to the right hand of your model, and your top view will be above your model, meaning the view on the right is the right side and the view on the top is the top side. Pretty self-explanatory, and the drawings just seem a lot more intuitive this way. What I would do is I would sketch something that looks similar to these. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as you have something similar, people should get the idea. I'm going to start it in the center, just going to draw some circles, and then I'm going to put my lines through it. So we're going to start, I don't know, 5 mil away, same on that side. I'm just going to draw these together like that and highlight the little lines and delete them, so we're just left with the big line. And the same goes for just here, 5 mil down, 5 mil up, and connect them together, delete the small ones. Now here my symbol has gotten too far up, so we're just going to bring it down in a more central position. So there's our target. Now we need to draw our parallelogram. Now this one should be a lot easier. I'm just going to start with a rectangle that is the same size, and I'm just going to take these corners, come in here and delete all the restraints. And now I should be able to move these corners up like so and these corners in. And now you'll see that we have a pretty similar looking setup to what I have in my PDF, although we would like for these lines to be a lot thicker, so we're just going to highlight them. Using the control button, we're going to select all of our lines, and then we're going to right click, go to properties, line weight, and I'm just going to up this to 1. Now obviously you would center that in the drawing, but I already have my own border and I'm just showing you how this works. Ensure that you're polishing off everything. But now, as you can see, if we compare this border to the border in these drawings, it is looking pretty similar. The only difference I would say is this revision box at the very top, and I would probably stretch that out and make it smaller, and just so that it looks similar and is a little bit more usable. Something else worth putting on your drawing border that I haven't seen a lot of other people do is placing in a remove all sharp edges and burrs note. The reason I'm doing this is because when I create drawings for manufacturers. The reason this note in the corner of your drawing is very useful, as it helps to cover you if someone gets hurt while making something that it is that you've drawn. Adding it directly to the border also means that you don't need to retype it for every drawing you make, saving time. And that's also why I've tucked it in at the very top left, because here we know that it's very unlikely we're going to have any of our model views and dimensions that will impede on this area. After adding your note, you should be about done with your border. Now's the time to make any changes you would like, as we're about to save it as a blank template you can open it every time you go to dimension a drawing. So now your border is created and filled with the info that suits you, you can finish the sketch and then name the border. The border won't show straight away. To add the border, open the border folder in the model tree and double click the border we just made. So I'm going to finish the sketch as we have, and I just noticed that this isn't actually in the border, it's just a text that I've put down. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to double click into the border, put some text in the top corner, I'm going to paste what I just copied, and now it is one with the border and will always be there. So we've finished our sketch, we've got our note in there, we're going to name the border. So I'm just going to name it something similar to me. My name is Jordan Keach, so I'm going to put in JK border, and this way I just know that it's mine. So now that our border's finished, I'm going to save it as a blank slate somewhere else. So I'll just save it in my CAD folder. So look, you'll see here that my border is actually already there and I save it as 1AA and then the name of it. This way you can always have it at the top of your files when you sort by name. You'll see here that it's at the very top. I also recommend saving this file somewhere easy to access, as you may need it a lot. So there you go, 1AA, my name, and then template. And that way it always appears at the very top. So now when you want to start a drawing, you're going to double click onto our template, and then you're going to input your view, you're going to do what you like, and then once you're done, you're going to make sure that you don't just press save. You want to save as. This way you create a new file, naming it whatever you like to call it, and the 1AA template remains, and that way when you're done, you don't open up the template and your old drawings on there. You just have a blank file ready to go again. So that just about covers everything here for creating your own border. So I'll see you in the next lesson, where we will touch on placing and manipulating drawing views to clearly show important details in your sketch. I look forward to seeing you there.